Okay, so we are at episode 7 of Devs, the penultimate episode of this season of Alex Garland's show that he has directed and wrote. So I was really hyped up for this episode, probably a little too hyped because critics beforehand said this was the big episode and this was the best of the season. And I just had to bring my expectations down on what I was expecting after I watched the episode because it did disappoint to me a little bit. I have a couple reasons for that, but it's more in a sense of actually looking at the whole season as a scope now with only one episode to go and where there's some disappointing feelings. So as I've said in previous reviews, Ex Machina, also by Alex Garland, was top 10 movie for me of all time. I absolutely loved it. And then Annihilation to me was a little bit of disappointment, but that was also based off a novel, so it wasn't like I was fully judging it as Alex Garland's writing. But if we're looking at his recent works, I feel like Devs falls in the middle of how good it is compared to Ex Machina. It's not as good as Ex Machina, actually to me nowhere near it, but I do think it's an improvement over Annihilation, which I wasn't so crazy about. But I think what we see in this episode highlighted is that Garland's biggest strength is his way to make you interested in theories and thought and stimulate your brain. He has some really high concepts in this show, and it's really challenging you in this episode, and it has a whole season. And he's a master at that, at thinking original ideas to kind of think and to deviate from shows that will be compared to like a Westworld per se, or a Twin Peaks, where shows that make you think, but it's making its own voice, which I think this show did great, and he did really good in the aspect of doing it in a show. However, I think this show really dropped the ball on characters and their development and their interest of the characters. Now, obviously, Lily is not the best lead character. Forget the acting for a second, because that's a big debate everyone's having of, is she good, is she not, Sonoya Mizuno? But I will say, again, I think she's somewhere in the middle, but it's not helping that so many characters in this show are so flat, and it's just adding boredom to it. And I think it's really tough when the lead is that character, because it is the flattest character. It's the least interesting character. You're spending the most time with that character, and it's supposed to be someone you're on board with and rooting for. And it's just a weird feeling that this episode closed with Lily getting to Devs to have her big moment. But I'm not even like caring because it's Lily. Like, I don't feel it from her. And that's really tough. And that bogs down where if you look at Ex Machina, you had 3 characters that were running the show that were all super interesting and complicated and something you can get behind, where here I think really what's become the only not one-dimensional character has been Katie. I think Katie's the most complicated and interesting at this point. You don't know where she's going to go or lean. There's something very mysterious about her, where Forrest started out interesting, but I think he's just become too transparent at this point. I think that the mystery that was started in the show, they might have showed their cards a little too much in the beginning. And yes, the counter argument to that is, oh, maybe there's a point to that, because it has to show this deterministic theory going on, and that we have to see what's ahead to kind of show if this theory is correct or not the show is presenting. But a result of that is the entertainment department of it, to me, is boring. I think that's the tough part of it, where if you're putting all your eggs to make your theory and your high concept of your show be presented how you want it to be presented to make you think, it's also sacrificing, though, interesting characters and maybe suspense in a way and where things might go. And that goes to, in this penultimate episode, I thought it just showed what people predicted. I mean, yeah, the reveal of the homeless guy being a Russian spy was predicted in episode 2, and that wasn't just, oh, Reddit is so good at everything, they figure everything out. No, anyone watching the show with a brain could have figured that out. So that wasn't a big reveal. That was expected. And same with how we really were giving an idea of so much of what this was all about once Lyndon figured out the multiverse projection. It really, that episode brought a lot of things to light, as did episode 5, which I loved, with Katie's perspective. But now it's kind of just a little bit riding that coattail till the end here, and it's like, okay, where's the big moment here? Where's the big reveal? Where's the shocking feeling that a story like this kind of usually gives you? Yes, there's one episode left, but I feel like if this is all we're getting in this penultimate episode, that this is where we're going to, it just still seems so just let down and hollow, this show. And I know this might piss people off, but I just feel like it's kind of filling in a lot of time. And the same about how many times we've seen Amaya flashbacks with Forrest. Like, we understand this already. There's just certain points to it where you're just like, like, I don't care for some reason, and I want to care. And even in this episode, I felt myself zoning out a bit. However, there was brilliance here. I think the bridge scene here with Lyndon and Katie was the best scene in the show, period. I think that is where Alex Garland is at his best. I think Lyndon was a great character. It also has Katie here, who's a great character. And I love they showed during the scene that Katie is talking in future tense to Lyndon. She's talking in future tense to everybody this episode because she sees what's going to happen. But it's just the darkest thing Katie's done, knowing that every case that she saw Lyndon in this, where they keep showing her fall every time, she knew there was no case she didn't actually stay up there and survive. And that was out of her own need to see maybe this deterministic thing is wrong and that Lyndon had a chance to stay up there. But no, it was what she had seen over and over, that she just dies every time. And I saw people complaining that it didn't make sense for Lyndon to actually risk this. But it did, because Lyndon was at the point of her whole life work was working at Devs. So she was really risking to risk her life to get back into Devs and show that. And it didn't pan out for her, and obviously that's going to upset Stuart even more than he already is, where he's at a breakdown at this point. He's reciting some really good stuff here, and the best was actually how they had him reciting this poem, I Work All Day by Philip Larkin, that was just narrating under this brilliant scene. And it was such a dreary poem, and just the point of it being that, like, no matter what you do in life, like, death is there, it's inevitable, and how religion tried to actually make that it isn't really a thing and that you live forever. So it's just a bleak thing going on to just be under such a sad scene with Lyndon here. And this episode really just confirmed for me that Alex Garland is really pushing this message, which I totally agree with, that there's certain tech people now that see themselves as gods, and that is their downfall, is that they can't look at something that's disproving their theory. They have to have everything go to what they really want to be true. And that's clearly Forrest in a nutshell. That's really shown when Stuart's calling him out on that, just being obsessive and ignorant and not actually acknowledging that this multiverse thing is really the way it's going, against his theory of total determinism, because that's what Forrest really wants. But we see in this episode the dev system is complete. That was a really interesting scene with Stuart as well, where the whole crew is there at Devs and they're seeing themselves a couple seconds in the future. That was pretty sick. This theory I saw on Reddit a lot of people have, and I think this is definitely where it's going, that for Katie and Forrest, knowing that this projection is going to end, what they can see stops at some point on this day, that it's going to be Lily who stops it, but it might be something that cuts to black, and then we see this was all some sort of simulation of a simulation kind of thing, and that it will reach to Forrest's end goal here of wanting to restart and relive life with his daughter, Amaya, and his wife. So we'll see if that's how it pans out. I just hope we get some kind of other twist here, and it's not just to the T, kind of like how it's been going, what we've been seeing that's going to come. And it sucks we lost Jamie. Jamie's another character that was probably the most likable besides Lyndon on the show. And it was tragic the way he finally had this nice day with Lily. But it's also pretty dumb for him and Lily just to hang in the apartment when they know Kenton was still out and about. And Kenton's just a cold man, just a pure cold kill here. I did like the scene though where Lily hits him on the head with the lamp, and then we get that great Alex Garland-esque music playing that's just total anxiety sounds, and it was just gruesome with the homeless man just choking him. But I was happy, like I said in my previous review, that Kenton, we're moving on from that as well, because he did get into that kind of cartoon villain territory, and I think he had served his purpose to that point. So overall, I think this episode is the third best of the season. I'm going to give it an 8.8. I still think episode 1 was still the best, and I think that Katie's episode is right up there with it. Episode 5. As a whole, it was a letdown in the sense of it didn't make this season all feel worth it to me. It felt like, okay, this is what this show is. It's anchored by a weak lead, and it's not the greatest interesting characters here, and it just weighs down for where its bright spot is, where it's in the theories and concepts and all these things that make you think about just life and technology in general, but it kind of left behind the other stuff. So that's the biggest disappointment of the show for me. Let me know what you thought of it down below, though. We got one episode to go. Maybe the finale completely changes my mind the whole season, but it's hard for me to just see that happening because it's still got to wrap stuff up, so it's a lot of a task to pull that off, so I'm not really expecting much, but maybe that will make me like it. But let me know what you thought of it down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond to as many as I can. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of Devs. I also am reviewing Better Call Saul at the moment, and I do celebrity interviews as well, so you don't want to miss those. And please follow me at Steve Varley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of me, and I'll see you next time.